Pisces. Pisces, you may want to write this one down. You may want to keep a record of your thoughts, even if you don't want to, even if you feel like you don't need to. Don't do it for you. Do it for future generations. Pisces. Welcome if you are new to the channel. Today we're looking at the zodiac in relation to the School of Athens fresco by Raphael Sanzio. My name is Ebony. My name is also Apollonia. Okay? Pisces. Chosen, as I just told Aquarius, I had to end the last two signs. I'm giving you and Aquarius are both receiving two philosophers. So I'm giving you, I gave Aquarius Ptolemy and Alexander the Great. Pisces, you are receiving Socrates as well as Hypatia of Alexandria. And I could not end this fresco without talking about either of these philosophers. They're paramount. I've briefly discussed Socrates in other readings for this series, but and I've also discussed Hypatia as well, but I needed to really, I think, dive deep into these two today. And so, Pisces, if you don't mind, I think you're the perfect sign to do this, to blend these two ideals together for the sake of everything that we're doing here, honestly. Because it's about our ability to do this at all. Socrates would probably tell us that we know nothing, right? In fact, let's pull that quote from Socrates. Socrates would tell us, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. It's man's ability to admit to his own ignorance. Also, strong minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and weak minds discuss people. In other words, if you don't have anything else to say, if other people occupy your mode of being, you're probably pretty weak-minded. You don't really think for yourself. Pisces, we know you think for yourself, and we know you think deeply about a lot of issues. A lot of issues. I feel like you're also a rebel in your own right. Socrates was bold enough to disagree with many of the philosophers that we see of this time period, right? Although we know what do we know? We know nothing. There's something about, maybe because Saturn recently has also moved into Pisces, the sign of Pisces, in this age of Aquarius, this new age of Aquarius, right? But Saturn is in Pisces, which is making us really question our reality, question myth, legend. It's about grounding this stuff. We're called to look at reason. We're called to really examine our thoughts. And not just our thoughts, but our thought processes. You know, there's something about making sure we have a good grasp on this as we move into the age of Aquarius. Because how we think determines our future. Not even so much what we're thinking about, but literally how we think. There's something about processes, the individual mind, how it processes information. I feel like the body. Pisces, I feel like you're very concerned about that. I feel like you pay attention to order and structure and how we receive information. You being such an intuitive sign, you're really actually very scientific in your own right. Extremely scientific. I've always found every Pisces to be very practical, as a matter of fact, maybe because you have to make so much sense of your reality in that way. So, Socrates, I feel like, is consulting. There's a school of thought happening here about the future. How do we move forward? Who's going to be the leaders of the future? The fresco itself is centered around, the centerpiece is examining two thoughts about where our knowledge comes from, right? Plato is saying that knowledge comes from the heavens, classically, the classical argument is saying that knowledge comes from the heavens. Aristotle is saying that knowledge comes from the earth, it comes from the ground, it comes from our environment that we can visually see and analyze. Both are actually happening. And again, Pisces, with you being the fish, I feel like you're able to merge these two concepts together of fact versus fiction. Not only is there both, but we need both in order to make sense of this reality, this dream that we're living in. Is it all a dream, or is there truth in it? Is there truth to our existence? Do we exist at all? How do we know? How do we know? I think, therefore I am, Rene Descartes would say. Descartes. That's the only way we truly know, right? We are the only record of our existence. So again, Pisces, you may want to write some of this stuff down that I'm about to tell you, because, again, the record of our existence was left behind for future generations. It's for future generations to understand where we come from. Understanding where we come from is just as important as understanding where we're going. In fact, why? Because it shapes where we're going. There are lessons from the past that are observable to understand. Such as Hypatia would say, reserve your right to think, for even to think wrongly is better than not to think at all. Hypatia, the only female scholar among all of the men in this fresco, the only female depicted in this fresco. And it's only really become knowledge over the last, I would say, century, into looking into the fresco of who she really is. There's not a ton of information on her, believe it or not, but there's enough. They did produce a film about Hypatia several years ago, starring Rachel Weisz. I think the film was called Agora, and it's about Hypatia's life. She was a scholar, she was a mathematician, she was a philosopher. She was also heavily, brutally murdered, brutally disgraced for being these things during a time when it was considered wrong and immoral for women to be in positions of leadership the way that she was. We have to dedicate this entire fresco, really, to her and Raphael, because without her, all the knowledge and information that we have here, much of it, like a good probably 90% of it, if it were not for her, we would know nothing about these ancient philosophers. And that's just the facts. Because during the burnings of the Library of Alexandria, much of their works were of course destroyed. And if it were not for her, if it were not for Hypatia saving these relics and these items, we would know nothing about these scholars. Literally nothing. And being that we're doing these readings around the time of Easter and Passover, and if you want to look even at Christ, right? Christ dying for our sins, right? I don't really believe that, but what it is saying is also he is risen. Let's pay homage, We're honoring the people who came before us, who preserved our right to have information, our right to think, to even know. Even if we make mistakes, even if what we think is wrong, is better than not to think at all. It's better that we have some perception that we're simply allowed to be. It's better than not to think at all. You know? Little history on Hypatia, what I grew up understanding of her through looking at the index, and also the school that I attended. I got to study Hypatia quite in depth. But also, this is basically a better image of the fresco of who she is. She was disguised. She was disguised as a boy. At the time, again, women were not allowed to be depicted in art. So Raphael knew that he had to disguise her as a boy, and he actually hid her as Pope Julius II was entertaining male concubines at the time, young men, basically. So Raphael, to basically stroke the ego, for lack of a better word, of the Pope, just asked the Pope if he could feature his little boy concubine in the fresco, and the Pope, of course, was thrilled about this, and he, this just really made him feel good about himself, right? Because the fresco, by the way, is hanging in the Pope's chambers. I've been here personally. I've seen the fresco personally. This is me in the Vatican at Rome. And basically, the doors that you see, which are the doors featured on right here in the corner, these are the doors that you would come into the Pope's chamber. Basically, this would have been at the time one of the chamber of Pope Julius II. So Raphael, the way he snuck her in was by depicting her as a boy. Okay, let's see. Hypatia, obviously this is not her true likeness. Her true likeness actually probably looks, she was Egyptian, so she probably looked a little bit more like me. Or, something kind of similar. Or they also kind of, what I'm seeing here, they depicted her as kind of looking like Cleopatra. She was an Alexandrian, yeah. And she lived and grew up in Alexandria, and that's where she studied. She also was killed there as well. So, and if you look her up, the image of her, how she died, is very, I hate to say it, it's, to me, it's almost worse than the crucifixion of Christ. If you can even imagine. There's something about crucifying in Pisces that we always associate you, the sign of the fish, with Jewish, and also, with Jesus. You are very Christ-like, and you're in your own right, so we associate you with that. But her murder was brutal. It was literally that it's argued that her flesh was scraped from her body with seashells. Could have even been like cobblestone, either one, probably both. Literally, they threw rocks at her, they stoned her, they scraped the flesh from her body, and then they dragged her through the streets by a team of horses until she died. Pretty brutal stuff, And with Christ crucified on the cross, a long, painful, torturous, arduous death, right? It's very symbolic that someone who tried to give us love and give us a way forward into the future would have been brutalized so heavily. Much in the same way, it's like they were punished the same way for preserving knowledge, for trying to elevate and ascend mankind to a degree in their own way. It's like the divine feminine and the divine masculine doing both. It's pretty crazy. So, thank you. Let's get a message for you now. Oh, one last thing about Hypatia. Hypatia and Raphael are the only two figures within the fresco that are faced out to us, the viewer, which means that typically whenever, especially during this time, whenever people were depicted facing outwards towards the viewer, it was a semblance, there was a message for future generations. That was kind of an artist's way of signaling future generations. Whenever their subjects were depicted faced outwards towards the viewers, we see everyone else is engaged in conversation amongst themselves, but she and Raphael are faced to us, which is our nod that there's a message for future generations hidden within these walls. And much as she tried to preserve the past, and she's cloaked in a white tunic of purity and love, and Raphael is, of course, faced to us as well to tell you, yeah, I've left messages here for you, for future generations to uncode within this fresco. In the Vatican, in Rome. So there's something pretty significant about that, so long as you're paying attention. So again, Pisces, take notes. It's not for you, it's for future generations. Truth. Ace of Air. The messages that you're leaving behind is the quest for truth. It's about our thoughts. A breakthrough. You're about to have a breakthrough, Pisces. The wind. The gust of wind, an idea, the Word. The Word. What did they do? They spread the Word, the Gospel. It's about spreading knowledge. So, that's why we're doing this fresco, and that's why I'm happy to end this fresco, especially with Hypatia for you. I like it. I like it for you, Pisces. What is your situation? Ten of Wands in reverse. Love it. Christ died for our sins, right? No. We're releasing the burden of shame. Releasing the burden, the sins of the past. Right? It's done. It's done. It's done. You actually probably feel like you can breathe again. You feel very free, as a matter of fact. If we have a 10, you're going to get a 1. We just saw the 1. We saw the Ace of Air. Let's see if you get it again. What does Pisces need to do at this time? You've released the sins of your past, Pisces. You've released the burdens that were holding you back. Whatever that was, whatever that is. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to fight anymore. Now, this could also say, though, that fights are coming, because there are other planetary alignments happening. Hierophant in reverse. I think you know this would be against your higher wisdom, though, to engage in any kind of fighting. You know it will be against your higher wisdom to engage in any perpetuated, ongoing war, battle. Instead, we want to give with reciprocity with the Six of Pentacles. Balance needs to be had. Maybe you're needing to balance up the scales with someone. Heavy Taurus energy here. Maybe a Taurus is significant in your life. Could be a father figure. Could also be the church. The church is a feeling the burden of what they did to Christ, or what they did to you. The Knight of Fire, the Knight of Wands. Hasty decisions, quick decisions. You are risen, Judgment, with renewal. You're taking action. Where are you going, though, Pisces? Away from contention. There is a fight coming. I feel like you know that. It's not your fight, though. The second coming is about the awakening of Christ consciousness, not the man, but of consciousness in man. The consciousness in man. If it's not more evident, I don't know what is. It's not about a man reappearing, it's about consciousness that he embodied, being embodied in man. I'm seeing like amoeba. I'm getting amoeba. An amoeba, like I'm seeing when a molecule or a cell splits off into two, and it becomes two, right? And then that splits, and then that splits, and then they split, and then it germinates, right? And then I could literally be speaking about a germ or a virus or something like that, but I don't think so. It's feeling like there's an idea that once it's seated in man, that once it's birthed in man, it, on its own, it multiplies, and it keeps multiplying, and it multiplies. It does it on its own, seemingly. You could be asexual, or there's something in calls with your sexuality, maybe you have an issue with your sexuality, or a father figure. Many of you were, in past lives, let's just say maybe you were a eunuch. I'm bringing up all this in relation, it's here, for some reason. We could see overthrows of certain religious organizations or businesses of power, of people who were also standing in false positions of leadership, false positions of power. Also, could even be spiritual influencers who are not very spiritual. So, if you know what I mean. This is about the overthrow, releasing the burden of guilt for what they've done to their subjects, maybe what they did to you. Advice for Pisces. The Hermit, yeah. Hermeticism, finally. The introspection. What a way to end this. Advice for Pisces. Hermeticism. Doing the healing work. The Hermit does the healing work. The Hermit leads the way. Wow, Pisces. And the Lovers. What's breaking out there? Two of Swords in two minds. Two-faced people. A decision needs to be made. Two. Right, we go from one to two. We go from a hermit planting an idea. Next thing you know, it's carried on to another person. You could have twins. I'm not going to lie to you. It's very, very possible. Maybe you are a twin. You're going the right way, by the way. Let me know if you're dealing with a Gemini. Hidden in the moon. You, the moon, behind the lovers. A hidden lover. Maybe with a Virgo. Let's read the Hermit as your advice. What light shines in the darkness and solitude? What shadows does it reveal in this matter? The meditative old man is believed to be a possible self-portrait of Leonardo, done in 1513, in the years before he finally retired to France. Leonardo's extraordinary career could not have developed without periods of retreat and refreshment. Indeed, the older he became, the less he was interested in social affairs. He decided to travel to France in 1516, where King Francis I granted him a house of his own at Clou, in Amboise, in the Loire Valley, in the house in which he died in 1519. Here the French king visited him often, delighting in the wise variety of his skills and engaging him in philosophical discussions, possibly to Leonardo's exasperation with visitors with whom he could be notably taciturn, I should say. At this point, the artist Leonardo may have been suffering from a partial stroke, which affected the use of one hand, restricting the amount of work he could do. He writes in his treatise on painting, "The painter should be solitary and consider what he sees, discussing it with himself so that he can select the best parts of whatever he observes. By acting as a mirror which transmutes itself into as many colors as there are objects placed before him, he will seem to possess a second nature." The old man, in his solitude, ponders the mysteries of life away from the distractions of popular thought. He discovers the power of the soul. You're doing something now that's actually going to become second nature to you, on page 44. Upright, prudent reflection offers you the best way forward. This is not a time or an occasion to socialize and be in the center of things. You need to study or concentrate away from distractions. There may be something that is not yet formulated and therefore cannot yet be shown or shared. Maybe you're working on something that you're in the process of building. Therefore, you cannot share it yet because you're still working on it. And to have outside opinion on the very thing that you're working on might sabotage the thing itself. It could actually, or sabotage your thinking of it. Something about you not receiving the guidance you would need, and a wrong guidance, or you might second guess the very thing that you're doing because of other people's influence. Something about having too much influence on an idea, outside opinions. I'm getting also groupthink with someone, like a groupthink, like a think tank. A think tank, literally a think tank. Being in the minds of everyone, but not in your own mind. Remember, reserve your right to think, even if you're wrong, because that is a gift. Even to think wrongly is better than not to think at all. Okay? We have to preserve the individual mind. One mind became two minds, but then those minds also thought for themselves. And then they became four minds, etc., etc., etc. But then it continues to grow. This idea will germinate. Maybe it will expand. Maybe you're going to expand. Maybe one thought, one idea that is placed here now, Pisces, will grow. For many of you, that could also look like maybe social media. Maybe you want to grow, but there's contention around that. The Five of Swords keeps coming out. This fight. It's a self-sabotage, maybe even of the inner critic. The inner critic, maybe you're not ready to do something or to go somewhere because you're afraid of the opinions of others. Okay? And rightly so again. Maybe you're even afraid, many of you have been afraid to share your spiritual beliefs, your beliefs even, just your beliefs about issues because you're afraid of the persecution of others. The way that you have been persecuted for your beliefs in the past, for who you were, simply because you knew how to think. You knew hidden principles of the universe. You knew the ancient philosophies. You knew about these things. You knew about principles that others didn't or had no concept of, no clue of. And because you had this knowledge, you were persecuted. They feared you. They feared your knowledge. Oh no. Hang on. Oh, poor little buddy. Had to go handle that. Maybe something made you sick to your stomach. Could be having digestive issues. Something about that. Maybe you're just coughing up a hairball. Oh, any final messages for Pisces? Let's pull a psychic tarot from John Holland. We've been very practical this whole time. Let's pull a psychic message. Ooh, immediately open on justice. Justice. Emotional loss. The Five of Cups. It's the love you feel for the love you felt. Christ's love. You are so loved, Pisces. Wow. You feel Jesus' love. It's the love of Christ that you feel. You will be victorious. Triumph. Yeah. One card, please, for Pisces. Temperance and the Four of Pentacles from the Foundation. 14 and 4, you could be seeing 414. That might be an important date. The 14th could have even been an important date for you. Discontent and another 4 here. Another 4. 414 in reverse. There are no reversals, really, for this, I don't think. But, let's see. 414213562. The square root of 2. What? Did I just get that? 1.414213562 is the square root of 2. Don't ask me why, but I actually did that. I solved that problem in elementary school. I actually solved it with with division. The square root of 2 is 1.414213562. The square root of 2. Mathematics, again, here. Speaking of Hypatia, who was a mathematician. The square root, she did not invent the square root of 2. Okay, I've discovered the square root of 2. She actually did something with cones and cylinders. Cones, triangles. So it's right that she would be over here with the school of Pythagoras and the Pythagorean theorem in the same school of thought, because she too developed heliocentrism. Yes, heliocentrism, Pisces. She theorized heliocentrism before even Galileo and I think Copernicus and other astronomers and mathematicians at the time. Hypatia theorized heliocentrism, that everything revolves around the sun. And not only does it revolve around the sun, it doesn't revolve around the sun in a circle. It revolves around the sun in an ellipse cycle, which was found through how you slice the cones of a cone. Yes! Where we get our parabolas from. The parabola are curves, our sine curves. So we're seeing a curve, yes, like this. Our curves, our parabolas, our cones that can be cut. When you cut a cone at an angle, the cone is with a circular bottom and it shapes into a cone. When you cut it at an angle, you get a parabola or a hyperbola, okay? And through this, we theorize. This was Hypatia's math, guys. This was her work, okay? And through this, she was able to theorize heliocentrism before many philosophers. 1.4142135562 is the square root of 2, by the way. And remember, we're talking about 1 becoming 2. How do you calculate for 2 in a situation? How do you divide 2? I saw justice here. Some of you could be going through divorce, and we're talking about, I'm even looking at this division going right down his back, and the triangle here, right? The triangle coming down his back where things are split. Some of you could be also having lower back pain if this is ringing true for you. It's about this obstacle, this mountain that you have scaled. Many of you, some of you, or someone, maybe even a spiritual leader, you're trying to attain enlightenment and ascension. Some of you simply want to scale these mountains yourselves. I had a dream about scaling Mount Everest the other night, which was very interesting, and I did it. And we were at a plateau. We'd already scaled it, and we were coming down. It's like we were celebrating I was with a group, and we were celebrating the scaling of Mount Everest. A mountain, guys, represents obstacles. This is a great deck, by the way, for anyone. It just really triggers the mind, okay? It really makes the third eye work. Mountains symbolize obstacles. The obstacle you're facing, Pisces, is patience. The time that it takes between the stagnation between what you want and what you're waiting for. Do you have the strength to persevere? Because we know that you're going to be triumphant. We know that you're going to have victory. You're going to triumph in the face of adversity, even. You're going to rise in the face of adversity. He's enlightened because the sun is behind him. The sun. What revolves around the sun? The planets. What is at the center of our universe? The sun, the galaxy, whatever. Light. Light is at the center of our universe. The known universe. Could also be a black hole for all you know, but hope. Hope. The star. A star. Literally. 717 now. Look. 717 and 414. 717 and 414. You may want to look at the spiritual definitions of these numbers. I might just looking them up myself. Since we're here already, might as well, right? Might as well. Let's look up 414. Again, you may want to write this down. Okay, 414 is often seen as a sign of balance, growth, and divine support, urging you to trust your instincts and take bold steps towards your goals. Take those steps towards your goals that you're wanting to achieve. It suggests a period of stability, hard work, and new beginnings, encouraging you to embrace change and focus on your spiritual journey. Okay. So take those bold steps towards your goals, Pisces, even if you gotta wait for them to really manifest. And 717 is often seen as a message from the spiritual realm, signifying a time of heightened spiritual awakening and inner development. It suggests embracing your unique gifts and moving towards your soul's mission with boldness and grace. This number also encourages focusing on well-being and finding balance in all areas of your life. And we know that sevens are also ascended masters, like El Moria, like Jesus, right? An ascended master talking to you today. Pisces, another 4 here with the Emperor, authority, and the Fool with new beginnings, all stemming from the third eye chakra, the brow chakra. You're getting the hits. You're so intuitive. And love. Ace of Cups. Drink more water, Pisces. Another 7. The crown chakra. You're being hit all over the daggone place, man. You're feeling it. You're undergoing a heavy spiritual awakening at this time, Pisces. It's awakening of consciousness in man. Multiple men. You're not the first person to scale this mountain, Pisces. You won't be the last. Okay? I've just heard the ascent of man. No, that's a book by Jay Bernowski. I read that in college. The Ascent of Man. It's about anthropology. Anthropology, right. Our origins. Great. Yes. Anthropology. The origins of mankind on Earth. We're looking at the ascension of man. Woo! The ascension of man. And also the many cultures we have on Earth. Something about I'm forgetting the technical terms for these things. Not wanting to disrupt the natural cycle of like a village or indigenous culture. Forgetting the anthropological term for this, but there's something about wanting to keep things in their authenticity, such that there's a word for this when we're overthrown. Again, we're kind of speaking at war a little bit here. When countries are taken over by other countries, or indigenous cultures are overrun by higher advanced civilizations or industrialized cultures, they disrupt that culture's unique identity, right? And they adopt that culture into their own. There's something about that. It takes time for these ideas to be adopted into mankind, is what I'm hearing. It's like it takes time for this knowledge to be understood by mankind. It takes time. Just give it time for this to develop in man, for him to understand himself. This is all about the quest for self. Preserve your right to think. It takes time for man to understand himself. He needs that time. And it's like our higher selves know this. Higher consciousness knows this. The divine is so patient with us, guys. The divine is so patient with us. As we contemplate our existence and who we are. Pisces, I'm going to end your reading here. I think that's a good spot to end it. Let me read Patience real fast. I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to leave your energy. And I feel like it's the first time you've gotten a chance to just maybe do this on your own in a while. I feel that. It's like, spend some time with yourself. If you're enjoying what you're doing, do more of it, you know? There's something about maybe you taking that time to yourself to just enjoy playing in your own mind, playing in the consciousness, playing with the ideas, with the symbols, letting it feed. And it's like I'm seeing them repetitiously doing something over and over and over again, because what? It creates a repetitive, it becomes second nature to you, right? Socrates says it becomes second nature to you when you repeat something over and over and over again. You're doing something over and over and over again, over and over and over again, until it's embedded in your mind, till it becomes second nature to you, Pisces. Repetition. When you do it automatically. Give it time for this idea to sink in. It will. This card signifies the need for patience, self-control, adjustment, moderation, and balance when dealing with others, as well as yourself. This could be in the areas of how you think and work, and how you handle school, recreation, the people in your life, or the spiritual path that's set before you. As a soul, you have more than one aspect of yourself to draw on for support. It's all about integration and learning to blend and balance both the physical and the spiritual. You're an ethereal being in a physical body, enjoying a human experience. Therefore, since you're both, you should honor all of you. If you go through life denying yourself the joy of combining these aspects, you're missing out on so much that the world has to offer. Why accept a life that's half-lived? The Patience card reminds you to open your heart and mind and allow yourself to listen to other people's ideas, thoughts, perspectives. Blissful harmony can be achieved when everyone learns to work as one. All benefit. Listening, sharing, and reaching out will help you renew your faith in yourself and humankind. You'll become more aware of miracles around you, as well as the ones you have a hand in creating. Okay, Pisces. Thank you guys so much for walking with me through the School of Athens fresco. I hope you found value in this. I hope there is value for you in this, Pisces. If you guys have enjoyed this, let me know. Please drop me a comment, leave a like on the video, subscribe if you are new to the channel. And I look forward to more readings in the future. We'll see what we get into next, how this channel is going to take shape. I don't know yet, but we'll see. In the meantime, Pisces, I love you all. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.